All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Marley Stein. I'm the Associate Director of Study Abroad. I've had the pleasure of meeting with some of you to go over your personal preferences for where you want to go. I advise for our programs in Latin America and Europe, and then we have several other study abroad advisors that advise for other parts of the world, Africa, Asia, Oceania. So we are going to talk about the Gilman International Scholarship today. Some of you have attended a workshop before, so you are familiar with our scholarship opportunities, but I'm going to take a moment and just paint the picture for what the scope of scholarships are in general at Study Abroad and how there is definitely funding for that. So here we have a quote from an alumni, Zuriel Trejo. Throughout the process, there was always the financial risk of not realizing the opportunity to go abroad. I was able to use and mobilize through my network to seek for financing opportunities to help cover the costs of going abroad. There are numerous UIC scholarships that can help one obtain these grant opportunities. So I think that we all feel that there's a financial risk of going abroad, but this presentation is to help you realize that you don't need to take on that financial risk alone, and that there are scholarships that can help reduce that concern. And Zuriel is an example of that. So this is an overview of today. I'm gonna do scholarships overview, types of scholarships that are available, who is the Gilman Scholarship for, eligibility and selection criteria, some writing tips and guidelines, the application requirements and essay, some deadlines, and then next steps. All right, scholarship overview. So where can you find the scholarships? On our website, studyabroad.uic.edu/scholarships. So there are several types of scholarships. The UIC scholarships, these are all currently located in SNAP. UIC scholarships are scholarships offered by our department, other departments on campus, your college. Sometimes there are private donors associated with different departments as well. So there's a number of scholarships that are available to you. A lot of times they can be used for, most times they can be used for any program you would want to participate on. Some of those include the ones through our office are the Nina Shepherd, the Stanley Eikenberry, and then we have a new one for students who are pursuing a semester-length program in Spain as well through the College of LAS. That's actually not through our office, it's through the College of LAS. Which brings me to the scholarships that are available in the College of LAS, the Professor Aguilar Scholarship and the James McNulty Scholarship are two opportunities for UIC students in LAS to apply to a study abroad program. Again, there's a number of other colleges and departments that offer that. In addition to this, we have UIC academic partner scholarships. These are also housed in SNAP. And they are agreements that we have with our different partners who run the study abroad programs on site for specifically UIC students pursuing study abroad. We have one through UIC CIEE or UIC IES, SIT, DIS, a number of those acronyms that you have all come to see in our program brochure. Those are located in SNAP. On top of that, each of the different program partners we work with, most of them, not necessarily all of them, have scholarships that they manage through their own website. And these are open to any US student or international student at a US university who is pursuing study abroad. And so it's not as small of a group as just the UIC partner ones are, but it is another opportunity for funding, and UIC students do consistently receive those. Next are national scholarships, which is what the bulk of this presentation will be about. The Gilman is a national scholarship for any US student who is studying abroad and on any program. Another national scholarship to mention, if you're going to Asia, a country in Asia, the Freeman Asia, and then the Fund for Education Abroad, whose deadline has passed. But if you're thinking for a future term, definitely look into that opportunity. And then lastly, other external scholarships. On our website, we have a wide variety of resources and external scholarships that we have come across that are able to be applied to study abroad. So definitely look through those. We recommend you look through the Diversity Abroad Scholarship Database and think through what your background and your diversity is and how those would be different factors for study abroad scholarships. One thing I did forget to mention, as many of you know, financial aid travels with you abroad. There are a couple of exceptions, but for the most part, for the semester length programs, financial aid will travel with you. In addition to that, any UIC scholarship that you get in general that you might find in SNAP that isn't related to study abroad, but goes towards your college education, that can also be applied to the study abroad opportunity. All this goes to say that study abroad is an integral component of your academic degree here at UIC. So there are opportunities for funding and financial support for that. All right. Okay, so moving on to the Benjamin A. Gilman International Scholarship. So the awards are of up $100 to $5,000. For the most part, we see students receiving scholarships in the $1,000 to $4,000 range, plus the option to receive a critical language award, which is an additional $3,000 that is a possibility. So common languages that students are able to apply for are Korean, Japanese, Portuguese, Russian, and a number of others. Those are the most popular ones that we've seen UIC students receive the scholarships for in the past. This is funded by the US Department of State. It's intended for students with limited financial means and to enhance their academic growth and career possibilities. So that's the mission of the organization. It's also a great scholarship for students interested in foreign policy or working for the State Department. You're encouraged to apply because if you do receive it, you are on a non-compete list for applying for a position in the State Department upon graduation. So another added benefit beyond just the financial benefit. All right, so here's the eligibility. You must be a US citizen, an undergraduate student at an accredited institution of higher education in the US, so USC. Participate in a study abroad program for at least 3 weeks in a level 1 or 2 location. Normally, when there are not adjusted State Department security warnings for COVID-19, that each country has a different level 1 or 2 distinction. Any students studying abroad on a UIC affiliated program are already going to a level 1 or 2 location. If you are not and you're considering a level 3, you would have to complete a petition through our office, but the Gilman wouldn't be applicable to a country with the distinction of level 3. But your advisor will be able to work through that with you as well. And then you must receive the federal Pell Grant, either in the semester you plan to go abroad or in the semester you apply to go abroad. Either one, as long as you receive the federal Pell Grant, you are eligible. All right. The Gilman McCain Scholarship, I'm going to take a moment to talk about. It is an extension of the Gilman Scholarship. It is quite new. It's only about 2 years old. It's for awards of up to $5,000, and it's for undergraduate students who are child dependents of an active duty service member for study or intern abroad. And again, you must be Pell eligible for this opportunity as well. So if this applies to you, get in touch with our office, or if you know a friend who this applies to, let them know to get in touch with our office as well. All right, I want to share some Gilman statistics with all of you so that you had an understanding of who's receiving this scholarship and what groups they're trying to reach. So 91% of Gilman scholars have not studied abroad prior to receiving the scholarship. So it's really for first-time travelers or students who haven't had the opportunity to experience a different country by living or studying there. 48% of the Gilman scholars were first-generation college students. So first generation is an important component when considering diversity of the applicant. And so this is their number, and they want that to increase. 64% of Gilman scholars either took language courses or courses taught another language. While even if you are not pursuing the critical language add-on scholarship piece, language and culture are big components that they want to see that you're interested in learning about and bringing back to the US when you return. 82% of Gilman acquired job-related skills. So this is a piece of statistic to let you know that students who do receive the Gilman and pursue study abroad are taking away valuable job-related skills. And then the last one is 30% of Gilman were STEM majors. Many of you might not know that STEM students, so students in the sciences and the math, Disciplines are underrepresented in study abroad. There are a variety of other underrepresented groups in study abroad. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in our diversity section of this presentation. All right, tips and guidelines. All right, I'm just checking to make sure everything's good in the chat. So some general tips and guidelines for writing your essay. The first would be to brainstorm, be creative, concentrate on what makes you unique. So those kind of all go together. So you have a lot of unique qualities in each of you. And unless you practice writing down all of the ones you can think of first and then self-editing, it's easy for you to miss one of these important things that would be appropriate to include in your scholarship essay. Be creative and concentrate on what makes you unique. Students that have intentionally chosen a program based on who they are and what they want to get out of it are more likely to receive these scholarships. So if you're choosing a very creative career path and the program relates directly to that, highlight that. Concentrate on that unique choice that you made. And then address the theme and prompt. It does happen. I've reviewed for many a scholarship application before where the student just writes about what they want to share and not necessarily with what the reviewer or the scholarship donor wants to hear. So that's really key that you're actually addressing the question being asked. There's ways to embed different things about yourself that you want to highlight: financial need, diversity, academic or professional goals, but they need to tie together in a strategic way that addresses the theme. And that goes to the last one. There's a lot of information to cover in a personal statement. So developing a common theme where you can tie these different components together is going to make your essay a lot more powerful. So those are general tips for any scholarship essay that you would need to write for study abroad or for anything college related, I might add. But for the Gilman, there are two essays that are required. One is the statement of purpose, and then the next one is a service related essay and has two parts. All right. So the statement of purpose is meant to encompass several goals: your academic, your personal, and your professional goals. These are the prompts that they give you for your personal statement. How will studying or interning abroad help you achieve your future professional goals? Why did you select your specific program and host country? How are you academically prepared to be a successful scholar abroad? If you have faced significant academic difficulties, tell us about how those, what those are and how you are overcoming them. And what examples of knowledge, skills, and experiences will you draw on to meet the challenges of going abroad? So the way I look at it, there's two parts to this. The first are talking about your academic and professional goals and how those connect to your to the program that you chose. The second is what experience have you already had that you can bring to study abroad that will either help you be successful in it and excel, or some a background of experience that you can bring to others that are participating on the same program where they can learn from you. So those are the two main parts of it. Now, the interesting thing is that the selection criteria are asking for two different things than what the question is asking. So the selection criteria is looking for diversity of background and experience and financial need. So those are two factors that were not addressed in those questions, but so you still need to include them, but yet address the question. So here's how we'll do it. I narrowed it down to a couple different questions that I think will make it a little bit easier for you to understand how to write about all of this. And again, I'm just going over the questions, the expectations, and to spark your interest and understanding of the scholarship, we will have a more in-depth writing workshop at a later point this year, where you'll actually get to answer these questions that I'm asking you and proposing. So what are some personal challenges you have overcome and how do they prepare you for study abroad? Some examples of this is we had a student who immigrated to the US, and they were in English second language courses when they first arrived, and that was a challenging but a beneficial experience to them. They later decided that they wanted to study abroad in Korea in order to work with Korean American students Korean American population in an occupational therapy setting when they return. So in that statement, they were able to describe their personal challenges, but also relate it back to their long-term goals and why they intentionally chose this program. How will this program help you gain the experience and perspective you need to pursue future career and academic interests and goals? Some students have had the opportunity to do research or internships in their area of interest, and they spoke about that goal of that component of the program and how that related to their larger interests. And then how will participating in this program add, complete, or enhance your academic studies? UIC has a robust listing of courses available to you, but it is obviously not comprehensive. There's many, many things to learn in this world beyond just what we're learning here at our own US institution. So maybe there's a course that might be of interest to you that isn't being offered at UIC. One example is students who are considering business, but want to learn more about fashion business, which isn't a big component of the business management degree, have chosen to study abroad in Milan to learn more about fashion business. Another student wanted to study abroad in a program through DIS that is in Copenhagen, and it's a design-based program, and they actually bring in local and national designers that speak to the students, and then they have networking opportunities with those designers as well. So those are perspectives that you're seeing in real time, forming that connection and networking that you wouldn't necessarily have if you are studying solely at UIC. So maybe it's something like that. Another example of this are students who might be in the public health sector that know a lot about how public health works in the US, but don't really know how it works in other countries. And getting that different perspective abroad allows them to compare and contrast what's working, what's not, and understand why the population that they're working with has a certain form of healthcare, or why, what historical or societal influences are contributing to the current public health system. All right. So here's an example of a student who talks about her academic goals and how those relate to the program that she chose. I'm going to give you a moment to just read through that, and then I'll summarize a bit about her. All right. So this student went on a program in Peru that is a joint partnership between UIC and the Field Museum. And this program was an opportunity for them to do actual archaeological research and work at a research center in Peru. So they're working alongside other research groups that are in that same area and studying the Moquegua Valley sites. And this student actually wanted to go on and do her graduate work on that specific population, the Wari and Tiwanaku frontiers group, the location. And she, after graduating and receiving the Gilman, returned back to Peru all on her own to continue to work with these artifacts and this population, and then went on to pursue a PhD in archaeology. And they were able to reference in the essays they were writing to apply to graduate school this experience in Peru. So that's how it related to both their academic and their professional goals. I like this example because I think some students come to study abroad wanting to learn a language and learn about the culture. And I think that is a very valuable and from someone who's done it herself, very valuable opportunity that study abroad allows for. However, it's a very common one. So this speaks to talking a bit more uniquely about why you want to learn the language or how you're going to use the language and culture in your future. This student actually also went on to receive the Fulbright, which is another prestigious scholarship where she did research for a year in a laboratory in Spain. After doing this program, this student attended the University of Deusto, and they have a business Spanish program. And so she talked a lot about in her essay why she wanted to learn specific business specific terminology in Spanish, because she wanted to not just know the language, but be able to use it in her professional context in the business world. So this is an example of thinking creatively, giving specific examples. A lot of times students speak too generally about their goals. So the specific examples really sets you apart from other applicants as well. Another example that I like to give for this is a student was studying English. She had a minor in Spanish, and she went to Buenos Aires because she wanted to learn more about Latin American literature so that she can incorporate authors from Latin American heritage into the English language curriculum. So obviously they would be translated, but it was important to her that there was representation of artists from from authors from different parts of the world in her classroom. So they had diverse perspectives, not just from a subset of European authors. So that's another way that she talked about how she wanted to learn the language, but specifically to learn about incorporating literature into the classroom. Next is thinking about diversity. So as I mentioned, their questions speak to the goals and the challenges, but the selection criteria speaks to diversity and financial need. So here are just a couple of examples that are for examples of diversity that they're looking for in your essays. You want to be explicit when mentioning these, but you also want to give an example of what that means to you. So this is going to be STEM students. This could be your race, your ethnicity, how you identify. There's many moments of intersectionality and connectivity between these different identities that you might have. Whether or not you're first generation, maybe you have a specialized career goal. I met with a student who had a very unique one, and I encourage them to apply for the scholarship because it's not always common that students know exactly what they want to do for their profession. So if they do know that, that's something that sets them apart. And if you don't know it, talking about why you are studying abroad and what that might mean to helping you explore your career aspirations is an alternative way to approach the essay. Veterans, whether or not you apply for the Gilman McCain Scholarship, gender, financial need, heritage seeker. We had a winner who wanted to go back to, her parents were from China, and she wanted to go to, she went to Kunming, China to study traditional medicine, having never traveled abroad. So that's another form of diversity. A non-traditional student, so maybe you've returned back to school later in your career or in life. Transfer students, that is an added component of diversity. Students who attend a public institution like UIC. Second language learner is another one. So this section is really important to highlight in your essay and is going to be valuable throughout your academic and professional career. Like I mentioned, we're going to do a workshop next week that is going to go over questions addressing each of these areas and exercises that will help you explore maybe elements of your background and identity that you haven't considered before because you might not think they're relevant or salient in the study abroad context. But I want to let you know that they are, and that workshop will help you explore that a little bit more. And we're partnering with the Office of the Vice Provost of Diversity to give that presentation. All right, and so this is not a Gilman winner. All the other ones were actual Gilman winners. This is an example that my colleague Michelle Mano in the Office of the Vice Provost of Diversity wrote, and I think it definitely goes to show the intersectionality of this student's diversity of experience. Nina, do you mind actually reading it out loud to everybody?
Yeah, no problem. Okay. As I was so young when I came to the US, I didn't know how American society functioned, specifically elementary school. I was the only immigrant in a class of 40, barely spoke English, and I had no friends because of these limitations. Every day of these first few years, I felt an almost physical divide between my peers and myself. I never experienced a sense of belonging despite my efforts. Already a double minority as a woman, and a Black person, I tried to relinquish, my language and culture in favor of American language and values to better fit in the crowd. By doing this, however, I almost completely lost my culture identity as both a Hawaii. I'm so sorry. Is that Haitian?
Haitian.
Haitian. Okay, so sorry, and an immigrant, and also my language.
Thank you, Nina. That was really, I appreciate you reading that for us. So can anybody point out a couple of examples of diversity that she is talking about here and how that an example that they gave, what are her diverse, sorry, I apologize. What are the factors of diversity or identity that the student is talking about? And what are some examples of how that might go to the background that they have? So I hear that the student identified as an immigrant. They were from a low income background. They didn't speak the language, so we have second language learner, an immigrant. They from a low income background. They talk about the intersectionality of being a woman and identifying as a Black person. And then they talk about how the struggle and the challenge they had between preserving their culture, but also becoming American. And so this is definitely a challenge that they've already experienced and something that they've overcome and that they're able to use when entering a new country and learning a new culture, a third culture, a fourth culture. And so this definitely shows that the student has maturity, they've reflected upon their diversity of experience and their background, and they're able to apply that to the study abroad context. I don't know where the student might be going, but if I was advising them, I would want to know about their professional and personal goals and how that relates to the background that they already have with different cultures. All right. Service in the greater community, part 2 of this scholarship essay. So you have two big essays and one of them split into 2 parts, which is the service and greater community. The community impact essay. All right. I think I've used up all my good examples already, but I have a couple more. So the first part is building mutual understanding essay. So as a US citizen, how will you represent and share what it means to be an American during your program? How will you seek opportunities to become more culturally engaged and have meaningful interactions with people and cultures different from your own during your study abroad? So this question is speaking to what does it mean to be a US citizen? And then what experiences and interactions are you going to have to enhance or complete your study abroad experience? The programs that you all are going on have been vetted by our university and they are comprehensive. They're meant to help you reach the learning goals of your class, but also the learning goals of the overall program. However, there is a sense of independence that the reviewers for the Gilman are looking for. They want to see that you are seeking out new opportunities abroad to share the US culture, but also to learn from the locals there. And they also want to see that you're taking advantage of what's already being offered to you via your program. So this is something you can highlight in the first personal statement as well, but maybe you didn't get a chance to talk about it because there's a lot of other things you were considering. But you can use this in the second essay when you talk about specific components of the program. So I know that there are some programs with service learning elements, community practicum. There's a program in Santiago where students are actually doing clinical rotations while they're there, where they're observing both a rural and a urban setting. So that's something maybe you could speak about. I know one student spoke about how they were going to draw about different scenes that they saw in the country they were studying, and document the reactions, the interactions of different individuals, and then reflect upon it. So that's just for someone who might learn differently. That's another way you can write about how you're going to do it. Students talk about joining, I'm going to use the Spanish word, the intercambio or language exchange. And that's a way that they can meet locals, other university students. Others have talked about the benefit of living with a homestay and choosing to live with a homestay. So wide variety. It really just depends on your situation and what you want to get out of the experience. Oh, I forgot to delete it. All right. Follow-on service project. So that is part one. And so in that essay, a couple of guiding questions are: how will you contribute to the greater community, the school, the neighborhood, society, and host country? So this is applying to both when you're there and when you return home. And then also, what skills will you develop that you can put towards helping others? So it might be like the example I gave of the student who wants to integrate Latin American authors into their classroom. So that's a skill that they're going to learn about how to analyze those texts. Maybe it's the business Spanish language. You can tell I'm the advisor for Spanish speaking locations. And then the last one is: what do you consider to be the single most important societal, economic, or environmental problem? That's another way to structure your essay, is to talk about a social issue that you want to learn about and see the difference between how it is in the US versus a different country. One student was interested in environmental science, and they went to Switzerland and they studied actually the way China, Switzerland, and the US, they did a research project, approach sustainability in the workplace. So that was something they were passionate about, an environmental problem, and they got that knowledge and experience abroad that then they brought back to, they hope they did bring back to the US to put towards their future professional career. So building a mutual understanding. So whenever you're unsure if your essay is on point, come back to that main heading, building a mutual understanding. So the ways I suggested are through a contribution, through skill development, or through supporting a cause. So those are three ways you can try to understand the building a mutual understanding prompt. Next, 2B, and this is, I would think, the easiest of all three of the essays. So by the time you get to the end and you're a little bit more tired, this one I think is a little bit more natural for students to talk about. It's very pragmatic, straightforward. They want to know, okay, you received this money, what are you going to do to perpetuate the mission of study abroad in the future? How are you going to help other students have access to this opportunity? In no particular order, describe your follow-on service project in more detail. What is your project and how will it increase awareness of study abroad and the Gilman program among your peers in your home or campus community? Identify and explain why you chose the specific community you will be reaching. How will you integrate the impact of your experience abroad into your project? With which campus departments, student organizations, or community organizations will you collaborate? So here, again, doesn't ask about diversity or background of experience, and doesn't ask about financial need, but there's several subtext opportunities for you to integrate that into the response for this essay. All right. So the first is, maybe there's a community that you came from and your elementary school or your high school is there, and it's a community that you want to then return back to and support. That's an opportunity for you to talk about your background, your experience, your diversity, etc. If you are from an area that is considered a low income area, highlight that there. They want to make sure that they're supporting students who might come from these backgrounds and that they're able to then give back to those communities. So this is an example of a student who did a follow-on service project. Kyle, do you mind reading this one for the group?
Sure. So after contemplating my plan regarding the follow-on service project, I decided to pursue outreach to all ages of education. All projects will target students at the elementary, high school, and college levels in hopes of increasing access to study abroad for these student populations. I intend to bring my expertise on this opportunity to students who believe that traveling to another country for educational purposes is impossible due to their socioeconomic level. First of all, I would focus my project on students who are currently in a neighborhood primary school where there's a significant lack of resources. I selected the younger population of students because thinking back to my experience of attending an underprivileged neighborhood school, I never thought I would leave my community. Therefore, I think it's crucial to instill the idea of breaking generational cycles that tell minority students that they will never accomplish anything great.
Thank you. So again, let's break this down. You can see that they added the personal connection to this community. They talked about why they chose that particular group, elementary and high school students. And they talked about the barriers that they perceived to study abroad and how they wanted to go back and break down those barriers. This is one of the most excellent examples that I've read. So this is a really good one to pull from. So then, Leslie, what's the actual tangible project that you're doing? What are you creating, developing? So I put a couple of areas that you can use as jumping off points. One thing I will say is that essays that have specific action items and a set plan for how you're going to carry out this project are more likely to receive funding. With that being said, they recognize that plans change, partnerships you might have had before change, but as long as you set a clear plan, if you do need to change what that plan is, they're more likely, they would rather give to someone who has a set plan, even if it changes, because they know they'll make a new set plan and they'll follow through with their project. So this is a requirement if you receive the Gilman. So I'd recommend that before you write about whatever it would be, you connect with the office or the community leader that you will collaborate with, so that you have an idea of what is possible to be done. So communities and networks, K-12 outreach, like the example that Kyle just read for us, academic departments on campus, both at UIC and as well as your high school, campus offices. So your academic departments could be your major, or a specific discipline that you might have taken in a gen ed class, like an introductory course that you thought would have a strong connection to study abroad. So you could do classroom visits, study abroad office. I am always happy to collaborate with returnee Gilman because they come back with wonderful stories. They're very passionate and they want to share their experience. So if you are struggling to figure out an idea of how you can contribute to the greater goal of access to study abroad, I myself, as well as the executive director, Kyle, are happy to talk with you about those options a little bit more. And then your own neighborhood or community as well. We had a student who asked that I actually accompany her to her high school, and the two of us went together to support outreach because it was a high school that was located really close to UIC, where a lot of students actually ended up going to UIC. Admissions as well, talking to families and parents, student support offices on campus, LADES, the African American Academic Network, the Asian American Resource Center, etc. They often host panels for their students talking about study abroad, so serving on one of those. And then lastly, this section down here, and I've mentioned a few of them already, are types of outreach. So being a mentor, a resource, or a peer advisor, participating on the panels, making your own presentation independent and promoting it to the larger campus community and presenting it to interested students, a presentation in a residence hall. Maybe you're more of a visual person, so developing flyers, vlogs, blogs, giving us feedback on our website and how we're reaching students. Are there ways to change or improve that? So saying you'll be a student consultant to our office is an option, or participate as a student representative at one of the events that we actually host. So next year, if you all apply and receive this scholarship, you can come and talk about your experiences the same way Zuriel was able to do in our other presentation. So those are a couple of ideas. Lastly, I know we're running close on time and this is a lot of information, is financial need. So as I mentioned, it's not something they ask about, but something they want to hear about. So these are a couple of examples of questions that will prompt your thinking about how you can highlight your financial need in your scholarship essay. So from a financial standpoint, what impact would this scholarship have on your education? So as we mentioned in the goals section, you're talking about your academic and professional goals. Let's give the example of being, well, this is all of it tied together, being a first generation student. And so accessing college in the first place was a challenge and a huge accomplishment for you. So now talking about that, if you didn't have this financial need, you wouldn't be able to meet your long-term goal of working at a embassy one day or working for the State Department. So just sometimes just explicitly saying that without this financial support, you won't accomplish XYZ goals. So without this financial support, you won't be able to be a physical therapist working with Mexican American populations. And then next, state any special personal or family circumstances affecting your need for financial assistance. So in addition to these essays, there are a number of background information and documents that you will need to share, one of which is your FAFSA. That's one to show that you received the Pell Grant, and two, to see what your financial support is as to attend college in the first place. But a lot of times those are just numbers. Those are not taking into account your personal or family circumstances that are affecting the way you pay for college and study abroad. So if there have been, unfortunately, any recent changes in your family structure, a death in the family, a loss of job or income, those are unfortunate things to have experienced, but they are things that you could reference to paint a more accurate picture of your financial need. And another thing you can speak about, maybe you are the primary caretaker of siblings, and that is something that is contributing to the financial welfare of your family. If that is the case, that's something you should mention, because you studying abroad will impact that family dynamic. And financial assistance will help with that. And then lastly, how have you been financing your college education? Are you working a part-time job? Have you taken out a number of loans? Whatever it might be, if relevant to your story, you should include that in your personal statement at some point. Or you could include it in talking about the service and why you want to give back to certain groups of people. So that is how have you been financing your college education. Oh, there's the slide I was looking for. All right, so that is the essays. The other thing you're going to need to include is going to be your academic transcript. If you are a transfer student, you're going to also include the transfer student, your, the transcript from your previous institution, and UIC. If you have any trouble uploading that information, let us know. We can assist with helping you find that. So next steps is to meet with a study abroad advisor. I am pleased to see that a couple of the students I've already met with are here and learning more about the Gilman. So if you haven't already met with a study abroad advisor, talk to them and they can guide you through program selection and then how to finance and fund that experience. Have your essay reviewed by study abroad. So as you definitely saw throughout this presentation, no, there isn't a one size fits all. It's about showcasing what's unique and diverse about you. And sometimes that's easier done in a one-on-one setting. So if you have an essay written out, a draft, or just maybe a brainstorm document, make an appointment with either myself or the executive director, Kyle Rausch, who's here, and he or I can help you review the essay, proofread it, give you feedback on things that you maybe don't need to include or things you should add. In terms of just general quality of writing, proofreading is very, very important. You can have us read it. The writing center, maybe it's a colleague at work or a faculty advisor or an academic advisor that will be able to give you feedback in general on content because they know you well, but also it's another set of eyes reviewing for grammar, syntax, everything like that. We want to make sure that your voice is shown clearly and articulately. It's possible that if you don't proofread and there's a lot of typos, as you saw in this presentation, which I did not like, it happens. I should have had my director proofread it. So there's no shame in getting help in proofreading. We just don't want to distract from your message. And then lastly, apply to study abroad. So if you haven't already started an application for us, we encourage you to apply to study abroad. Right now, we have our application open for fall 2021 through April 1st. And then scholarships are going to be extended to April 15th. Or if you're planning for a future semester, come talk to us, do a consultation. And then as we move forward in the process, you can apply to study abroad for spring or summer. All right, that is all I have for you all. So thank you for attending. I look forward to you all fulfilling your study abroad dreams with the scholarship or with a different one. So if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask those and or put those in the chat.